Thank you all for coming. I'm thrilled to be welcoming Kelly LeVeque to Google today to talk about her wellness approach and her new book, Body Love. So Kelly, if you don't know, is a wellness expert, nutritionist. You have many certifications under your belt. But I really connected when I learned about Kelly with her scientific approach to health and wellness and nutrition, and just found it really fascinating and kind of, for me, cut through a lot of the clutter that's out there and just confusion around what advice to listen to. So super excited to have her here. And just to kick off, Kelly, you have a really unique approach. And you love using scientific studies, evidence-based nutrition. So can you tell us a bit about how you developed that strategy and what led you to your overall nutrition philosophy?
Sure. So I'd have to take you guys all back to the beginning of my career. I had an 8-year career in cancer and genetics, where my job every day was to read studies and determine if they were biased or unbiased, if they had significant p-values, like how many people were involved in the study, who was funding it, what was the goal, and was it correlation versus causation, which you find a lot in nutrition studies, because if you think about it, it's really hard to determine if an apple a day is good for you if one person's eating cheeseburger, another person's eating fries, and another person's having a Fab Four smoothie instead. So, but what it was for me was always a passion, always something that I've loved. So I've loved health and nutrition since I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I was that girl who read diet books in high school we joked about this when I got here, when I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons or 90210, but I was allowed to read those books. And it was something that obviously was a hobby and then became more, because what I was able to do once I learned how to read those studies and go into you guys have Google Scholar, which I love. It's a great place to find studies. I can look up what I'm, something that I'm searching for, whether it's like the benefits of curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric, or what's better, 2 meals a day or 6. There's a lot you can get from the research, and understanding how to read the research allowed me to kind of just mine that nutrition knowledge and figure out what I thought was the most important. And what I kept finding was that there were a lot of things that overlapped, whether you're eating a Mediterranean diet or an Atkins diet or a paleo diet or a keto diet, or you were blood sugar balance, or you were Weight Watchers. I kind of just didn't want the eat and do not eat list. Like, I just wanted to understand the science and say, like, how am I going to feel my best? How am I going to stay fueled? How am I going to, stop snacking on junk when I wanted to reach for goldfish? Like, I grew up on goldfish. Those are great. But for me, it was really trying to decipher what was the most important thing here. And that came down to what do your cells need to proliferate? Because your body's constantly breaking itself down and rebuilding itself. You rebuild your body about 9 times over your life. So I wanted to know, what did my cells need? And then what's going to make me feel my best? And like perform and function my best. And so that's kind of what led me to my philosophy, which is a light structure around eating that isn't an eat and do not eat list, because I think, for a lot of people who decide, oh, I'm never going to eat rice again. Well, what happens when you go on a trip with your husband to Japan? Like, I just went, am I not going to have sushi? Of course I'm going to have sushi. But it's understanding, well, what do these macronutrients do? How do they break down in my body? How do they make me feel? And then making choices around food based on that knowledge. So
that's awesome.
That's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah. So coming out of learning all that research, what are some of the biggest biological takeaways that you want to communicate to men and women?
Sure. Well, a lot of you guys got a copy of my book, and I talk about something called the Fab Four, which are, I think, the 4 categories that I think are important for you to be aware of. The first being protein, the second being fat, the third being fiber, and the fourth being greens. And by greens, I mean vegetables, like leafy greens, things deep in color. And the reason for that is that you have essential amino acids, which are from protein, that your body needs. You have protein stores in your body that are used to rebuild these cells that we break down. Like the programmed cell death is apoptosis. So if your body says, oh, this cell is not functioning right, you'll kill it off, you'll rebuild it. And that's what I was talking about when I said your body breaks itself down and rebuilds itself. So you need protein to do that. by any means think that you need like 200 grams a day. If you're like on a bodybuilding website, that might be the recommendation. But, you know, something around like 20 to 30 grams at each meal. And there are going to be meals where there are less, and there are going to be meals where there are more. But just to keep those stores up. Fat, I think fat is really important. I think there was a big period of time where people ditched fat because it's higher in calories per gram, and if you're a calorie counter, that's a really easy way to cut calories, right? But when it comes to satiety and feeling full and calm, which is so much about my philosophy, I am just all about eating food that turns off hunger hormones so you don't have to think about food. Fat is really good at doing that. When you eat fat, your body releases a hormone called cholecystokinin, which is like a really strong satiety hormone. I mean, think about it. If you're going to have chicken and steamed broccoli versus chicken, broccoli, and a pesto sauce, I mean, obviously, you're going to feel a lot more satisfied when you're adding fat to that. And that's also going to slow the digestion of that meal and elongate your blood sugar curve. So we aren't reaching for snacks, which is another thing that I like people to do, is like add to their plate. Instead of depriving themselves, add things to make something last longer in your body. And fat does a really good job of helping you absorb all your fat-soluble vitamins. There was a study that came out on avocados, and by adding avocados to, you know, a salad, you're actually increasing phytochemical absorption by over 300%. So when you think about those nutrients that you're trying to get, those antioxidants that are fighting the oxidative stress of day-to-day life, you're not going to get there without the fat. So I love fat. And then fiber and greens comes down to your microbiome. It comes down to detoxification. It comes down to feeling full. So the physical stretching of your stomach does something. It helps your body with the hormone called ghrelin. And ghrelin, I like to think of like the gorilla hormone. If you don't have that physical stretch of your stomach, you're going to be starving. You just want to eat all day long, like you're just grabbing for another leaf, or hopefully a leaf. Sometimes not, but the real stretching of your stomach. So when we grab a green juice, I know juicing became really popular, grab a green juice, you're not really turning off that hunger hormone, so you're going to be hungry later. And then the greens, specifically like leafy greens, great source of fiber, great source of phytochemicals, but also the source of a sugar, a sulfur-based sugar that feeds your probiotic bacteria. So when you think about all of the gut bacteria in your body, like 10 cells of bacteria to every human cell on your body, you want to make sure that that's proliferating and that you're just really a walking around ecosystem of bacteria that's giving off gases, free fatty acids, and things that tell your genes what to do. So for longevity purposes, detoxification purposes, whenever you can say like, I'll just like add a cup of spinach to that smoothie, or I'll like get a side salad to start my meal. I mean, it's a great way to stay full. It's a great way to get really good nutrients too. So those 4 things, I think, is my way of helping people turn off hunger hormones and elongate their blood sugar curve and eat an anti-inflammatory diet. So instead of just saying like, oh, I can't have this anymore and I can't have that anymore and I'm not having gluten or I'm not having dairy or it's like a lot of I'm not, which creates a lot of food drama. I like to say, okay, look at my plate. Do I have a good source of healthy fat? Can I add olive oil or avocado to this? Can I add slivered nuts to this that'll make me feel a little more full, so that 3 o'clock doesn't roll around and I don't go, oh, is it time for a brownie? You know, because we're all going to get that depressed feeling around 3 or 4 o'clock where a coffee, a brownie, a cookie sounds awesome. And that's a hormonal thing that's happening inside of you. It's also due to the fact that whatever you had at lunch, your blood sugar can go up and come down on average about 3 hours. So depending on when you eat lunch, between 12 and 1, that crash is going to happen. And if we can elongate that window, you don't have that crash, and we can be aware of the way that we're hormonally going to react at that time. We can have strategies to kind of like deal with it, move through it, and hopefully continue to eat clean.
Yeah, so what are your like top tips then for elongating that blood sugar curve? You touched on your like Fab Four items.
Yeah.
But, like, how does that actually play out in our bodies?
Right. So if any one of you guys have heard, like, for example, if you had like a sweet potato, or you had a sweet potato with coconut oil or almond butter or grass-fed butter on it, the actual adding of fat slows down the digestion and breakdown of your food. And when you add greens and fiber, your body has to physically digest those things, and your digestion happens with 2 like chemical byproducts, hydrochloric acid, which if you have acid reflux, that's that feeling, right? That's the acid. You want that acid. It's really, really good. Actually, a lot of times when people have acid reflux, we're finding that they actually have not enough acid to bring their stomach acid down low enough to shut the sphincter between your esophagus and your stomach. So would be interesting if you do have that issue to talk to a functional medicine MD and see if you can add a little hydrochloric acid to your diet. And the other thing is enzymes. So think about everything that you eat, it needs to be digested like a brick wall. And enzymes and hydrochloric acid dissolve the mortar, and you absorb brick by brick or nutrient by nutrient. So the more that you can add fiber and fat to your meal, the slower that digestion happens and the longer you feel fueled and satisfied.
That's great. So here at Google, we're presented with a really unique food challenge. Food is basically everywhere. We're never more than like 100 feet away.
Yeah.
Most Googlers eat about 2 meals a day here, plus we have kitchens with snacks all the time. So what do you think is a good, smart approach to buffet-style eating, constant presence of food situations?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are definitely, we can call it a perk or we can call it a challenge. I think if I was here, I would be like, it's a perk. Oh my gosh, it's a challenge. Because it's almost like you guys are on a cruise ship 24/7 or back in college with like the meal card. I think you really have to focus on your hormones. You really have to focus on shutting down those hunger hormones early. And I will say, I do have clients that work in LA, that work at Google, that work at Netflix, that work at Facebook, and they're challenged with these same type of perks. And the thing that I would say is it's probably really important that you fuel up with a good breakfast. And I talk a lot about the Fab Four smoothie in my book, and what I talk about is that it does a really good job of keeping people full, sometimes until 1 or 2 in the afternoon where they're not thinking about food, which is interesting because a lot of times when people have the opportunity to come in and have a buffet, they opt out of breakfast and they decide, I'll just, we get free food at work, so I'll just wait until we're eating at work. And then if you are getting to a place where you're so hungry by the time lunch rolls around, that hunger can really derail those healthy choices. Because when you're starving and you're trying to make a healthy decision, you order a salad and it comes with a French baguette and you're that hungry, odds are you're probably going to go for it. So my advice would be know who you are, know how hunger affects you, and if you're the person who ends up overeating because they've waited too long and they're in a crash, craving, hungry state, then do something about that in the morning. Make that healthy choice and know that the perk is always here, right? You always have food all around you all the time. Eating to satiety and making those meal choices over snacks is going to serve you in the long run. Back in the 60s, people didn't snack. 50s and 60s, snacking wasn't a thing. You had 3 meals a day. We had way less disease states in regards to type 2 diabetes. There wasn't insulin resistance. We didn't have metabolic syndrome. We weren't being faced with this. And this is all based on the fact that there's food around us all the time, right? And especially the food that gives off dopamine, right? If you were to have a brownie or my flaming hot Cheetos, or think about probably what you're being offered here. Not only is that a source of fast blood sugar that's going to hit your brain, but it also releases dopamine like a drug, sometimes as much as 8 times as strong as cocaine. So to feel like you're not addicted to those type of foods and that you can just make non-emotional food decisions around them is a little silly. You're going to feel those connections, and food is laced in with memories and emotions and relationships. So I would say, especially here at work, don't make the indulgences the little mini kitchen crappy snacks, right? It's not the healthiest decision. So try to make sure that you're fueled up at mealtime so that you're not feeling the urge to do that as often.
Yeah. So we live in a really strong fad diet culture. There's advice coming from a million different directions. So how do you approach distilling the right information and finding, actual facts that you believe in and want to promote?
Well, there's a lot of really amazing nutrition research, but we're in a day and age where we have Google and Google Scholar and bloggers and people like Tim Ferriss or Dave Asbury or you name it, people who are sharing a lot of information based on studies, and I like to look at these as tools. I don't overanalyze them. I say intermittent fasting, that's pretty interesting. Tell me about that. Okay, well, what is intermittent fasting? It's a limited time of eating, and how can that benefit someone? It can increase insulin sensitivity. It can lower hepatic or liver fat. It can lower belly fat. It can lower cravings. It is really good and healthy. So how can I implement it? I look at it as a tool and I say, okay, what kind of person am I? Am I the kind of person that can get up in the morning, just have coffee and tea and not eat until 2 p.m.? I'm not that kind of person. Like, I wouldn't probably be fun to be around, but I also see, okay, that's really interesting. How can I implement that in my life? I'm definitely the kind of person that'll get up, have breakfast, have a lunch, maybe have like a light snack at 3 or 4 o'clock, and then say, I'm going to skip dinner tonight, but I'm going to eat to feel full and satisfied. So making the choice to not to like have a bone broth dinner or to skip dinner is a lot easier than white knuckling it for me until 2 p.m. where I can't concentrate and can't focus. So all of these things are tools, and if you understand them on a biological level, like the bulletproof coffee is a great example. Why is that popular? Well, fat, like we talked about, really does a great job at releasing a satiety hormone in your body. It also has the least and lowest response of insulin. So say you had a donut for breakfast, that donut immediately turns to blood sugar. I like to joke around about emojis. I think about like the donut emoji floating in my bloodstream, and that's my blood sugar ratcheting up, right? Insulin's the hormone that picks up that sugar and starts to put it away in your body. It'll store it in your liver and your muscles, and if there's no space left, it's storing as fat. And the process of converting it to triglycerides is a little bit inflammatory, and insulin is one of those hormones, a chemical messenger to store fat. So what's so great about bulletproof coffee? It's going to turn off some hunger hormones, or it's going to release a satiety hormone in your body, and it's not going to release a ton of insulin that's going to make you store fat. It's going to keep your body in that fat-burning state. So all of these things are just tools for you guys. And generally, if you can just think, I want to generally eat healthy, what do my cells in my body need? Cool. If you want to be paleo or keto or vegan or vegetarian, that's fine, but you still need to understand blood sugar. Like I was telling a friend the other day, like, I don't care if you're keto as long as your fat sources are healthy, like clean sources of fat. I don't care if you're vegan or vegetarian as long as you understand your blood sugar and you understand what's turning into blood sugar and how much insulin you're releasing. And I don't care if you're paleo, but let's pick healthy sources of protein. Can you get in touch with a company like ButcherBox to deliver grass-fed protein to your door? Or, can you go to a farmer's market and make those healthy choices? Because just because you're bucketing yourself in a lifestyle diet doesn't mean that you're eating clean. So it's more about understanding the biology and then being able to say like, oh, I'm keto today, or I'm paleo tomorrow, or I'm vegetarian on a Friday. But understanding your blood sugar and understanding the science of that kind of sets you free. And that's honestly what the book was about, was teaching people blood sugar so they understood, well, when I eat something, what's happening in my body. If I have that donut, my blood sugar goes up, my blood sugar is going to start crashing at 90 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm going to want a morning snack. I'm going to feel the crash. I'm going to want a bar. I'm going to want an apple. I'm going to want to use caffeine to push myself through to lunch. And I'm going to release a ton of insulin. It's going to tell my body to start storing fat instead of burning it. And that insulin's going to last for 6 to 8 hours. So from a donut, you kind of start the time clock of insulin and you turn it off 6 to 8 hours later. So I like science because I don't feel bad when I make a decision to say, yeah, it's my anniversary and bring me the creme brulee and the glass of wine. But I also know
you're not cheating.
Yeah, there's no such
aware.
thing as cheating. It's a choice in knowing, okay, so maybe I'm going to release a lot of insulin and my blood sugar is going to go up and it's going to crash down. And tomorrow morning, yeah, I'm probably going to want a bagel, but how do I turn off my hunger hormones and push through that? Maybe I make a chocolate almond butter smoothie and I feel calm and full and make it to lunch and then start the healthy train again.
Yep. So what are two of the biggest mistakes that you see people making a lot of the time now in regards to their nutrition or fitness? And what are your tips for avoiding or redirecting from there?
Yeah, well, I think everyone, to each their own, right? And we all have a different experience and there's a lot of bio-individuality, but I will say that the idea that big bowls of acai or big smoothies that are all fruit are healthy is a mistake. There's no way that you would sit down to a banana, an apple, and a pear, and a whole head of romaine, and eat all of that in one sitting. And when you talk about the amount of fructose that is and where it's metabolizing, fructose metabolizes 100% in your liver. and it's hard on your body. It gives off free radicals, which is kind of interesting because fruits are high in antioxidants. So I think that that's so amazing the way nature works, that we metabolize fruit, we give off free radicals, and they have antioxidants to neutralize it. I just think that that's super cool. But you just would never sit down to that many, and I see people do it day after day after day after day, and then they're having glasses of wine at night, it's metabolizing in that same liver, and it's we don't need 3 to 5 servings of fruit a day. You know, a serving a day I think is a great way to get antioxidants, but to start your day on that blood sugar roller coaster where half of the fruit is being metabolized to blood sugar, where you go up and down, and half of the fruit's being 100% metabolized in your liver and giving off free radicals, I would say a serving is probably a good place to start. And then second would be the idea that we need to be working out or eating before we work out. There's a really big idea that like we should be having a small protein and fat-based snack before we work out, or a bar, and people get worked up about it. Like I have had clients who have always done it, and so it's really scary to think like I'm not going to have a bar before I go to this HIIT training class, and I'm going to feel nauseous and I'm not going to feel great. But this is your opportunity for your body to kick in. Not only will your liver release some blood sugar so that you can actually get a great workout in, but this is the time where your body will release a hormone called glucagon to bring blood sugar back up. And what glucagon does is it lowers bad cholesterol, it decreases belly fat, it's anti-inflammatory. I mean, we just never use it because we're always eating and then having a snack and eating again, and our blood sugar never gets low and our body doesn't bring it up naturally. So there's also a really big benefit to working out fasted, especially in the morning. You get a huge surge of human growth hormone and testosterone that does a great job of burning away fat and holding on to lean muscle mass, which is just great for the body.
That's awesome. So you just published your first book this year, Body Love, which is awesome.
Thank you.
So what was your approach to writing the book, and what did you most want it to teach readers?
Well, I do feel like there are a lot of people out there that didn't really understand blood sugar. They might have read Atkins or the Mediterranean diet, or they might read about balancing their blood sugar and health or shape or whatever, magazine, but I didn't feel like there was a real understanding of how it worked. And I didn't see anything out there that simplified it enough to say, no, this is exactly what happens when you're only having a piece of toast for breakfast. Your blood sugar goes up, 90 minutes we're starting to crash, you feel hungry automatically like an hour and a half later. At 3 hours you're hitting that low blood sugar state, you're feeling like, yeah, I absolutely have to have a snack now, right? And I just think knowledge is power, and so I tried to simplify it and then give people a really light structure, easy plan to say, I can do this. It isn't about deprivation. It isn't about cutting things out. It's really about enriching my life, adding to my plate, and learning how to elongate those windows between meals, because a lot of the science is pointing towards less meals being healthier for us in the long run, and elongated windows between meals being really good at, like increasing fat burning and even brain functioning, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm. I've heard you talk a bit about your husband's less healthy eating habits.
Yeah, it's real.
And I think in this community too, it surrounds, eating is a big thing here at Google. We go to lunch with people, we grab snacks or froyo with our teammates. So how do you like to approach eating with people that you love and making that a communal experience while still kind of staying true to like what makes you feel your best?
Sure. So my husband's Instagram is Be Bad by Chris. I'm Be Well by Kelly. He is trolling me on the internet. He posts pictures of pizza and ribs and burgers and fries, and he pops champagne bottles. And we keep it light because that's real life, right? So in no way do I eat 100% perfectly. In no way am I, when I'm stressed out, feeling like I don't want a brownie. That's a real thing, right? I want dopamine, and I know where to get it. But the thing for me is in the celebration. Like, how often is it happening? Like, how often are you getting froyo with your team? Is it every week? Do we need to be celebrating like a team meeting with froyo every week? And so what I tell people is start with the Fab Four. If you go to a party, search out your protein, fat, fiber, veggies. There's got to be like, a crudité somewhere and some chicken somewhere, and then think about the celebration and ask yourself, like, who are we celebrating? I mean, is it your birthday or your coworkers? Do you know the coworker whose birthday party it is? You know, ask yourself who you're celebrating and save your celebrations for you. Like, celebrate your anniversary, celebrate your birthday, you know, celebrate on vacation. I think we're always looking for like reasons to celebrate, and now we have all these horrible days like National Brownie Day, National Donut Day, it's Champagne Day, you know, and it's like an Insta phenomenon. But what I would say is just try to ask yourself, like, am I celebrating myself or the people that I truly care about? And if you are, then you need to like celebrate, not feel bad about it, and not take guilt forward into the future. And then the second thing would be not only who am I celebrating, but why am I celebrating, or why am I drinking? I think that's a really important thing to think about. Are we drinking to feel comfortable in a networking social situation? Are we drinking with like our best friends and opening a bottle of wine to like laugh like old times? Because I think it's really different if you're just feeling uncomfortable going into a networking event and grabbing a glass of wine because you're like, oh, I don't know anyone, hurry quick, feel comfortable. And so I always challenge my clients to never drink to feel comfortable, drink to celebrate.
Totally. So we have some time now for the audience to ask a few questions. So you can think about questions you have for Kelly. We can start that off.
Hi, thank you so much. So my husband also doesn't eat super healthy, and I try to cook healthy for us at night and whatnot. But I mean, you love your husband, you want him to be around for as long as you're around, right? Like, do you guys have conversations around how the food that he's eating is impacting his health and like his cholesterol maybe?
Yeah.
My husband has bad acid reflux, and so he's like taking Prilosec every day. And so what can I do to help him? And then I'm going to pile on a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I chew gum a lot. I wanted to know what you think about that. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Why am I doing that kind of thing from a science perspective?
Sure.
And then I also usually want like a piece of chocolate after my lunch.
Yeah.
And why am I doing that?
Okay. So we're going to attack this in 3 parts. Yeah. First, your husband. Yes, I think it's always really important to give positive reinforcement. So for Chris, when we first got together, he had chicken and rice. That was like his healthy meal, and he had cereal for breakfast, but he would have like the whole box. And then it really was up for grabs. I mean, we were young when we met in our early 20s, and I mean, he came from a frat house to living with a bunch of guys, and he was just eating out. And so my whole thing is, we have something called Fat Chris Friday, where he gets to order whatever he wants. And if that means and he's an adult, he can make all his own decisions. I care because I want him to be here for the long run, right? And I want him to be healthy, and I want him to feel good in his body. And so, yeah, I mean, that means he'll sometimes order a pizza, burger, and fries on a Friday night. And that's the truth. But the thing is when he knows he has that, he'll make healthier decisions throughout the week, and I just support him. I make clean dinners, and if he needs to have, and he does this, he'll have like a rice cake with peanut butter after if he doesn't feel satisfied by that, or he'll do that's a pretty healthy decision, right? But he's on the green smoothie train. So what I started doing when we first moved in together 6 years ago was I'd make a green smoothie, and I'd put peanut butter in it instead of almond butter because he likes that better, and then I'd give him his. And he got used to it and really liked the way he felt. And it became something where I'd always compliment him and say, oh my gosh, so much vitamin K, so many phytochemicals. Like, this is the most, lots of positive reinforcement, and always supporting the process. And then, I mean, if it's a Reuben fries and like 4 IPAs when I'm not around, or even when I am around, it's his life, right? So I would say definitely support him. Along with the acid reflux stuff, I definitely would search out a functional medicine MD. There's a company that's here in San Francisco called Parsley Health. It's a membership-based VIP type of a medicine company where they're going to do gut bacteria. They'll take cortisol tests and see if there's stress. They'll do an acid reflux test. He might have a food allergy that's causing this acid. He might also have a low acid, which is causing an inability for his sphincter to close tightly without having acid reflux. You can also check to see if he has any type of hernia there inside. Second, the gum thing. So artificial sweeteners, we taste sweet, and some people's livers will, or pancreas will overreact and release insulin at just the taste of sweet. So that's kind of interesting because it's almost like you're giving yourself a taste, but you're never going all the way there with real sugar, right? My biggest recommendation for people who have a gum issue is to get, and I have one here, it's an herb farm. It's an organic herbal spray, and they do peppermint, spearmint, cinnamon. It's a real essential oil, and it's like old school Banaka, but it works great. And you can give it a spray and to kind of like clear your breath and also stop the chewing, because you just don't want to perpetuate sugar cravings. Also, fake sugars feed bad bacteria like candida and yeast in your gut, which also, when they overgrow, make you crave more sugar. And we all have a certain amount of yeast, like candida and yeast, growing in our body at all times. You just never want that to overgrow. Fake sugars like Splenda, aspartame, that all kind of feeds that. And then what was your third question?
The chocolate after lunch.
Oh, yeah. So I have a fix for that. It's called freezer fudge. It's in the book. It's a sugar-free coconut oil, almond butter, and unsweetened cocoa powder. You blend it, you melt it, blend it together, and put it in ice cube trays, and you pop it, and it's healthy fat, but it tastes like fudge, and it can kill the craving. You can use like a little bit of monk fruit or a little bit of stevia if you really need the sweet. But also a dark piece of chocolate works great. And I would just say have it right after. Don't wait, right? Because if you wait and then you just have the sugar, then it becomes a blood sugar thing. But if we have it together, we can actually keep, the fat and the protein and the mixed macronutrients of our meal will help that elongated curve. Yeah, and that's a
Same
habit
thing with
thing.
stevia. Can stevia also make your...
Unfortunately, yeah, it's like the newest studies are showing that we're not having the blood sugar response, but we're getting the insulin response, which is a bit of a bummer.
Cool.
Because we can't have our cake and eat it too anymore. Yeah, yes.
And since I'm the mic gal,
Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback. What percentage of, or if it's dark chocolate, do you have a percentage of cacao?
I
you
just
like?
go like 70 up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. So you actually just touched on what I wanted to ask about having the dark chocolate or chocolate with like close to the meal.
Yeah.
So I understand, what sugar in the form of whatever it takes does to your insulin. I understand that fat helps turn off the hunger hormones and provides a lot of satiety. But I'm less sure about, I hear a lot of like, if you're gonna have like a piece of white bread, have it with fat and with protein, and the overall insulin spike in your blood is not as high.
Yeah.
Like, is that true? If I really can't give up a carb, which I can't right now, in a meal, just having more of like the good healthy fat, like if I have toast with avocado on it, does that actually really help my insulin spike, and how much?
Yeah, well, we'd have to like prick you and test you to find out how it really works in your body, because everyone's a little bit different, and people's blood sugar response also has a lot to do with their gut bacteria, because if you think about it, you have this tube that runs through your human body, and you have this layer of bacteria, and if you don't have antibiotics, take medications, and you eat fairly clean, and that fiber and greens kind of keeps that ecosystem growing, then they ferment a lot of the carbohydrates that we eat, and sugar, which can lower your blood sugar response. So what I would say is yes, absolutely. Try to choose whole grains, or maybe like a sweet potato or a squash or something like that. And yeah, I would absolutely have it with the meal. Keep it in a serving size. A great rule of thumb is net 30 grams of carbohydrates. So a lot of times if you look at the total carbohydrates and the fiber, subtract the fiber from the total, and that'll give you net. So that would be, for example, a half a cup of quinoa. A lot of times when I sit down with people, they go to these places, and I think you guys have one here in San Francisco where you can literally not talk to a human, and a quinoa bowl pops out of a microwave type of a box. But that's like 2 full cups of quinoa, which is like close to 100 grams of carbohydrates, and there's only so much space in your body to store that as fuel. And when we store it as fuel, it's like a little goes in our liver, the rest goes in our muscles, and if there's no space left, your body still has to bring that blood sugar down. It's not just going to hang out high for very long. So I would say yes to a starch. I would try to maybe look at each meal of the day and say, is there one meal where I cannot have a carbohydrate?
I was just about to ask, sorry, as a follow-up, is it really better to not have it with dinner versus lunch? I mean, I understand you're less active after dinner, but like, I can run after dinner if it means I can have a starch with dinner.
Yeah.
Because I want it more with dinner than I want with breakfast or lunch, but like.
I like bookending it. So yeah, I would like for someone to either, which is why I created the fruit-free smoothie in my book. It has protein, it has fat, it has fiber like chia flax, it has a handful of greens. It can be flavored like matcha, it can be flavored like chocolate almond butter. It doesn't have to, it can be savory, sweet, filling, thick, not like a thin juice, right? So you can kind of skip that fruit spike in the morning. And then I just tell my clients when I meet with them one-on-one, can you pick between lunch and dinner? Like if you're more emotional at dinner and you can get away with making a big salad at your cafeteria here, loading it up with veggies, adding avocado, getting a good healthy fat on there, and you're like, I can make it to dinner, great, you should do that and not worry about if one way or another is a little bit better. What I would say if you're a big starch night person, I would say let's try to move dinner back. Don't be the European 11 p.m. dinner person. Can we pull dinner back? Can we have dinner at like 6 or 7 o'clock at night? And if that's not feasible, maybe 2 nights a week you commit to having dinner at 5 or 6. Then all of a sudden you're getting the benefits of what would be an intermittent fast, and you're letting your body deal with the sugar consequence. No problem. We work around.
Okay, I have like kind of 2 questions, but so fasting, I was always under the impression it can like slow down your metabolism, so I wanted to hear your thoughts about that. And then also, I always wake up hungry. Like someone could feed me in bed. That's like how hungry I am when I wake up. And so I'm wondering if that's a problem or if like it has anything to do with metabolism too.
No, okay, so first things first on fasting. So there's a guy named Brad Pilon, and he tried to do his thesis on, his book is called Eat, Stop, Eat. He tried to do his thesis proving that fasting killed your metabolism, and he proved the opposite. It actually increases your metabolism. At 24 hours worth of fasting, your body releases human growth hormone and testosterone, which holds on to lean muscle mass, and lean muscle mass is your metabolism, and you start to oxidize fat in your mitochondria instead, which is super awesome, right? But what happens when we are lowering our metabolism is when people become at a calorie deficit. If you decide that your metabolic burn is, let's say, 1,800 or 1,500 calories a day, and you go, oh, I want to lose all this weight, I'm going to try and eat 900 or 1,000 calories a day, which is crazy. You should never do that. Your body will eventually catch up and lower your metabolism. Some things can happen, like the lowering of like your heart rate. Your organ functioning goes down, your brain functioning goes down, and that's your body going, oh, this is all we're getting, so we're going to respond. And the cool part about fasting is you can eat the same amount of calories and fuel yourself the same way in a smaller feeding window, which is why intermittent fasting is becoming so popular. And then your second question was about eating in the morning and being starving.
I always wake up hungry, like I just eat breakfast immediately.
Cool. I think it probably has to do with a number of things. Like if you were a kid whose mom like got you up and was like, time for breakfast, and that's like been a habit for you for a long time, it's probably the case. And honestly, if you have growling or you feel like sour stomach and you're like, yes, I want to eat something right away, the studies, I mean, granted they're like a little bit older, but they all show that breakfast eaters weigh less overall, have less food anxiety, and have less scale change than non-breakfast eaters. So even though intermittent fasting and bulletproof coffees and all of these things are really popular right now, I would say you got to stick with what works for you. And if you're looking to like tighten up in any way, which you have a totally adorable frame, so you don't need to do that, but or push yourself, I wouldn't start with breakfast for you. I would say, can I do a fasted workout in the afternoon, or can I put a workout in the morning, or can I eat dinner earlier, or hey, let me switch out my rice for cauliflower rice. Little things like that can make a bigger difference for someone like you than trying to jump on a fad if it's not working for you personally. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on multivitamins or collagen powder. And
Yeah.
whether that's something that you recommend, and if so, which ones?
Yeah, I do really like collagen. Primal Kitchen Collagen Fuel is great. Vital Proteins is great. Collagen was not popular for a long time because it's only a few amino acids versus something like grass-fed whey or pea protein, or even now the beef powder proteins like the paleo proteins, because what we used to think is like, oh, well, I need all the amino acids. So if if collagen's only 4 or, and these other ones have like 12 or 13, they must be better. Well, if you're eating protein at lunch and dinner or have other sources of protein in your life, collagen's a great source of protein because not only are you getting the amino acids that your body needs to synthesize protein, but there was an animal study that showed that actually what we used to think is that you would digest and dissolve all of that collagen into its individual amino acids, but now we know that a certain percentage of those collagen strands are being absorbed in their whole form, at least in animal studies. That's not, so it doesn't correlate to human studies, but it is pretty cool that as we age, we synthesize less collagen, so giving your body the inputs to make it is great. And then when it comes to multivitamins, I would just be particular about the type of multivitamins. All of the percentages on the side of those that say like recommended daily value are based on really old research. So there's a company called Ritual, which just came out with a women's multivitamin, and they took the studies and brought them up to date and increased the dosages for current deficiencies in women. But there are certain brands like Thorne and orthomolecular products and certain multivitamins that I think are good. I think if you really wanted to know if you needed to take a multivitamin, you could do a vitamin testing with a type of functional MD. But I always say like my base is to get someone a multivitamin. I think it's a good, because I've had clients with a B12 deficiency or B6 deficiency and they're not hitting goals and they don't know why and they're trying so hard, and then we find out, oh, you have a vitamin D deficiency, or you have a high omega-6 content and low omega-3 serum content. So the Ritual has the omega-3, the Ds, the D, the Bs, and I think it's another fun tech company that's like $30 a month, and they tell you everywhere they source their product. The problem becomes when we walk into CVS and just grab one off the shelf, and it's not the bioavailable form, or, it's kind of a Me Too product too with supplements. I could go out and make a supplement tomorrow. I could call a company and say, I want you to slap my name on the side of this bottle, but for me, it's like I'm going to let the people who are professional at doing this, like a Ritual or a Thorne or one of those, do it because they've proven themselves. So I would say yes to collagen, yes to a multivitamin. My favorite things in multivitamins would be B vitamins, omega-3, vitamin D, and then on top of that, if you have like a sleep issue or digestion issue, magnesium at night, and a probiotic. Those would probably be I'm pretty minimal. And if I can get it in one form, I'm like, that's perfect. I can take 2 pills in the morning.
Okay, I think we can do one more question.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you about the connection between length and quality of sleep and those false cravings that we have.
Yes.
Craving, and it seems like if you don't have enough sleep, have more craving and vice versa. So what's your thought?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That feeling of wanting more food, and specifically carbohydrates, is very real. You have an increase in hunger hormones with lack of sleep. I mean, if you've ever had a really great night's sleep, like 8 hours, and it maybe is a Friday and you wake up Saturday and you don't feel as hungry and can easily get away with smaller meals, that's a real thing. So there's an increase, a decrease in the sensitivity of leptin with poor sleep, which is a hormone that comes from fat cells that tells your body that you're full. And insulin sensitivity is decreased. So we have a little bit of an issue putting blood sugar away, which also makes us more hungry. So yeah, I mean, sleep is one of those things. If I have goals for a client, whether it be a movie role, a red carpet, a wedding, you name it, if I have a timeline person, sleep is one of the #1 things we work on, because it can really derail our progress. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, Kelly will be here for a few minutes if anyone wants to pop up. get a book signed, say hi. But thank you so much. Loved hearing from you. I hope everyone else did too.
Yay.